Feeling lightheaded, feeling kind of shaky, hot and sweaty, although my hands are cold and clammy. I feel kind of dizzy. I think I might be having a panic attack. Or are you? Or is it that the vasovagal response, your fight, flight, or freeze, has been activated, has been irritated, and you're getting a lot of the signs and symptoms that go along with a very normal and a very real physiological response? You want to know more about this, as well as a couple things you can do to help to overcome this when you're in it and to decrease the likelihood of it happening, then stick around. You're probably all familiar with the fight, flight, and freeze. Something happens either out there, a big stressor, there's a threat, you feel like you're at risk for getting harmed in some way, shape, or form, or possibly even dying, or there's a sensation, you pull something, you twist something, it's a sharp pain, you cut yourself, you go to give blood, that's me, and start to feel nauseous and woozy and lightheaded and sweat. All of these things tie back to the vagus nerve. It's one of the largest nerves you have running through your body. Vagus, a Latin word, simply means wandering, is just that. It's a wandering nerve. And it starts here and runs through the entire body. It's constantly giving us feedback. Actually, it's two nerves, right side and the left side. And this nerve, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, is responsible for helping to keep us alive. It's giving us immediate response to stimuli, both externally with a possible threat and internally with a perceived threat. It can activate that exact same system, also referred to as the autonomic nervous system or the sympathetic nervous system. And there's very little that we can do about it when it happens, and it's going to happen and has probably happened multiple times in your life. And it's not always bad. I mean, think about it. Amusement parks thrive on setting this off on you for the thrill. Wah! Scared as you fly down that hill on a coaster. But when it happens at inopportune times, well, not so much a thrill. And again, it helped to keep us alive. It helps to get us ready for being able to fight, being able to run away, flight, or play dead, freeze. I don't see how freezing would be an evolutionary advantage, Todd. Well, a couple things. A rabbit that freezes in the midst of a bunch of bushes is harder to see, especially given their fur patterns. And another way to think about it when it comes to that for us, if I get cut and this response occurs, my blood pressure drops, my heart rate drops, and I end up being elevated on the ground. I'm less likely to bleed out as quickly. It serves a function. It helps to try to preserve us. Short term, but it could be the difference between somebody getting there to help you and somebody not being able to get there to help you. But what do we do about this? Because this goes off now with perceived threats as well. You go in and get your blood work done, they poke your arm, you can see all this happening, the anxiety is going up anyways. It's not a pleasant situation. It's one of my least favorite situations. I think I'd rather go to the dentist than go get my blood drawn. But it truly isn't a threat, yet to the physical body, it's perceived as one. So here are some things that you can actually do to get ready for a situation like this or get out of it once you find yourself in a situation like this. So from my own personal experience and what I have been told to do when something like this happens, and my training in doing thousands of blood draws and finger sticks across the nation when I used to work for a health and wellness company, is have the person lie down. It takes about 30 minutes. Once the vasovagal response has been activated, it takes about 30 minutes. You should just stay put for 30 minutes. Know where to lie down? You can just simply fold forward and allow yourself to just be as flat as you possibly can. 30 minutes it's going to take for the initial chemical release to work its way through the system. Less severe, maybe 5 or 10, but 30 if you really feel like you're going to faint. Find yourself a place to be horizontal. If you're going into a situation and you know it's going to be difficult, you can use the cold water response. And what that really means is going into a restroom and running your hands under cold water. You can also cup some water and use the dive reflex, where as soon as I put my face into a thing of water, it sends a signal. The body actually starts to react. It starts to slow the heart rate down, bring the blood pressure down, because it can't tell the difference. It knows that there's liquid present, thinks you might be underwater, and slows it down so that you actually get the most out of the oxygen you currently have. Do you think it's any coincidence whatsoever that when you see people are stressed out, a lot of times if they have the ability, they will go to a restroom or they'll get near a sink and they'll start to just cover their face and try to cool off this system. So we want to cool things down. The running water, especially over the back of the hands, putting water on your face, putting water or something cold, a wet towel around the back of your neck will help you to soothe that vasal nerve. Another thing you can do in the immediate moment, if you're not already feeling like you're going to pass out or have passed out, is to find a place, sit down, take your hands and locate right behind the ears on both sides. And you can just gently move back and forth. Actually, I'd like for you to just go ahead and try that right now, whether you're feeling anxious or not. Just notice the subtle difference. When you put your hands behind your ears and you start to just move back and forth, just lightly, you're actually contacting part of the vasal nerve. You're actually hitting an area which is highly sensitive, and will begin to just slow things down and soothe the body using a physical mechanism. Now you can expand on this by actually running all your fingers right up into the back of the hairline and then down the back of the neck into your shoulders, and back up and then down and then back up and then down. A little bit of a massage. We're hitting that nerve, we're hitting it right where it starts as it runs into the whole body. Again, you've probably either noticed this or done this yourself in the past when you're in a stressful situation. Oh, God, I can't believe that happened. Or, oh man. So we are going there. And now what I'm doing is just bringing your attention to that action so that you can actually think of it more as a skill or a technique in dealing with it when you're right in that moment. Have you ever noticed that one of the best things that you can have somebody do when you are highly stressed is they come over and start to give you a back massage, really focusing on those shoulders and pushing into it? Same mechanism. And another thing that you can do is just drop the temperature in the actual environment. We want to bring it down and make it cooler, roughly 66 to 68 degrees. Now, I've also noticed this to be true in doing all those different blood draw clinics and finger stick clinics that I had done. One of the things that I noticed is that when the room was warm, more people would become nauseous, more people would pass out, more people would start to feel lightheaded and faint. And when I would simply ask ahead of time to bring the temperature down to 66 to 68 degrees, I would have maybe 1 or 2 people that would be dealing with a vasovagal response versus almost 24 people dealing with fight, flight, or freeze. If you have fainted, getting into a place which is cooler, lying down, will actually help to soothe this whole system a little bit quicker than being in a place which is warm. Have you ever wondered why a hospital is always cold? They're trying to make sure that this system doesn't become activated. And they're keeping it cool on purpose to help you. Because they know, well, if you're here, you're dealing with something that's definitely stressful and possibly life-threatening. Now, of course, when it comes to managing the stress and managing this particular system, if you actually had a practice daily where you're allowing yourself a moment to just be present, just notice what's going on, notice the thoughts that are coming up for you, especially the ones that you're anxious or worried about, and just allowing them to be and grounding yourself using a mindfulness technique, grounding yourself, noticing your breath. By practicing something like that often, a mindfulness practice. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I have to put it in here. It's really that big of a deal. Mindfulness. Having that mindfulness practice helps in multiple ways. It helps us to keep that system a little bit more soothed, a little less reactive, And it also gives us the ability to notice when we are actually starting to work up and move through different stages of anxiety that ultimately lead to a panic attack. Actually, a lot of the times I will work with folks just going through the behaviors, and then I'll have them start to do mindfulness when they start to be in similar situations to get them to notice you don't usually have hot and sweaty hands and everything happening just like that. It usually starts slow and then builds, and then there's something that finally just activates and kicks you right over that line, turns the system on full blast. But there are almost always little indicators that that's the direction that we're going. And of course, if we can get out in front of it, then perhaps we can either decrease the experience of that or avoid it altogether. Yeah. Of course, it would be a disservice too to not mention things like physical activity, and having a physical routine that we stick to helps to just keep things moving. It's a great way to just get rid of some of that extra energy. Plus, when you're doing things like strength training or running or riding a bike, your mind is focused on that and less likely to focus on whatever it is that may be bothering you, maybe upping the stress levels. And of course, we want to make sure that we are getting 7.5 hours of sleep. 7.4, I think, is what the research points to, but obviously that's going to vary for everybody. But let's just say 7.5 hours and try to go for that. And even better yet is if 7.5 hours in a dark room where we're not getting bombarded, not on our cell phone, and it's cooler, we can actually combine a couple different things to get more return on the investment. So there you have it. There's a quick overview of what that vagus nerve is, the autonomic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. There's a couple different things that you can do when you're experiencing it in the moment, and a couple different things that you can do that'll help you to prevent or at least decrease the likelihood of experiencing an event like that. I hope this information was useful, and if it was, please just give me a thumbs up below. And of course, you can always subscribe to get more information like this from me in the future. And until the next time, may you be well.